My name's Gary Parker. I'd like to welcome you all here today. I'm the Managing Director of CNT Associates. CNT is a business support and fundraising and digital services organization based in Southeast London. This presentation today is brought to you with support from the Royal Borough of Greenwich's Generative Business Programme, of which some of you are members. I can see one of them there. Hello, Eleanor. And if your business is based in Greenwich, or your project is based in Greenwich and delivers services in Greenwich, you may be able to get some free support from us if you contact us outside the meeting. I'll give our contact details a bit later, but you're all on our mailing list anyway. I think so. Also, if you're in Bexley, there's maybe some free business support we can offer you as well. If you're not in those areas, I would suggest you look at your local authority website and see what business support is on offer currently. So what you're going to get today is an overview. This is quite a big subject, so to distill it down to 40 minutes or so was a challenge, but I have run this recently for Aston University, an Aston University project. So it is tried and tested. So please ask questions at the end. There will be time. And I will just start to share the screen now. And let's share that. We can just... Okay, can everybody see that? Yeah, good. Okay. I'm going to just hide the screen. Yeah, what we're looking at today is best practice for reporting and monitoring social impact, and an overview of how to review and understand monitoring and evaluation of social impact of social enterprises and businesses as well, although generally speaking, it's usually non-profit making organizations that have to demonstrate social impact to funders or for other reasons, promotional reasons, but increasingly this is the case with private sector businesses as well, because social impact, particularly if you've got, say, a local authority contract or a government contract, is something that's becoming increasingly important to demonstrate the value of your services in the community, and a number of other measures which we will look at. So we're going to define it first, what social impact is. And for those who've just joined us, you will get a copy of the presentation later, and it will also be on YouTube within the next 2 weeks. So look out for our CNT YouTube channel. You can just Google or search rather CNT Associates on YouTube, and you will find lots of presentations there. This will be on there soon. Social impact. Here's a definition. Social impact refers to the positive or negative effects that a social enterprise project has on the well-being of individuals, communities, and the broader society. It encompasses the long-term changes or benefits that result from the project, such as improved quality of life, enhanced social inclusion, environmental sustainability, or economic empowerment. So it's the overall impact of the project within the community. Um, Sometimes you can have outputs which we'll look at later. For example, if you're an employment project, getting people into jobs is an outcome. However, the more general impact of getting people into employment is improvements in the community, a more economically inclusive community, etc., etc. So it's focuses around the longer term changes, not necessarily just the short term ones, i.e., people getting into employment, which makes them more economically active. It's the longer term changes or benefits from that project, such as quality of life, enhanced social inclusion, etc., etc. In practice, in England, social impact might include outcomes like reducing unemployment in a local community, improving mental health through social activities, or reducing carbon emissions through sustainable practices. They're just some examples of social impacts. There are many others, but this is where you come in relation to your particular project. Monitoring it. Monitoring social impact involves systematic tracking and assessing the changes that occur as a result of a social enterprise project. So it's a kind of systematic approach to things. This process helps in understanding whether the project is achieving its intended social goals and how effective it is in addressing the needs it set out to meet. So what does that mean in practice? Might involve collecting a lot of data, participant outcomes, such as the number of people who found employment after attending a skills training program, or measuring community engagement levels over time. So you're setting up a system. It's usually based on key performance indicators, or KPIs, as they're often called. These are the key measurements. So if it's an employment program, it's how many people got into work, or other outcomes like further training or volunteering opportunities, whatever. And a whole number of other potential outcomes as well, which are monitored in a systematic way. And we're going to look at some of the ways to do that shortly. Outcomes. Outcomes are the specific changes or benefits that result from a social enterprise's activities. They represent the short and medium-term effects that the project has on its beneficiaries or target community. So these are the immediate benefits of a program. Like I said earlier, if you had an employment program, if people get a job, that's an immediate outcome. In areas like that, it's far more straightforward. For example, if you're a mental health project, then this outcomes and the social impact can be more challenging to measure, because it could be with some individuals. For example, getting a job might be an outcome after having some well-being issues, but for others, it could just be, getting out of bed regularly, because it really depends on what key performance indicators you've got and the client group that you're working with. So all of these things need to be adapted to the work that you're undertaking. And that can vary depending on what sector that you're developing your services in. And I've given another example here: improve mental health among adults who engage in community building activities. So the outcomes are the short term and medium term effects that the project has on the beneficiaries. For example, with employment, you can look at a range of outcomes, but the obvious one is getting into employment. So let's move on. These are outputs. I'm going to summarize these in a second. Outputs are the tangible products, services, or activities that are directly produced by the social enterprise. So this is what you do. Again, if you're an employment project, you will be helping people to upskill. You'll be giving them support to go through interviews. You might even get them work experience. So it's all the things that you would do to help that individual to get into a job. And these are the immediate results of the project's efforts and are typically easier to measure than outcomes. Outputs serve as the building blocks that contribute to achieving the desired outcomes. So in practice, outputs could include the number of workshops conducted, the number of participants trained, the amount of resources distributed, or the number of community events held. So those are the kind of things that you're delivering or supporting your client group to do. So here's a summary of all the things that I've just mentioned. Social impact, we define it as the broader, longer-term changes resulting from the project. So how is your local community or area impacted or affected by the activities of your project? Monitoring social impact is the process of tracking and evaluating these changes. So it's a systematic approach. So you set up a system to do it, and there's various techniques you can employ. We're going to look at some of those very, very shortly. Outcomes are the specific changes or benefits that occur due to the project. And outputs are the immediate tangible results produced by the project. So understanding these terms is effectively designing, implementing, and evaluating the social enterprise project and ensuring that it delivers meaningful and measurable benefits to this monitoring and measurement of social impact. And it can also help you if you can demonstrate social impact. Many organizations that I work with used to produce annual reports. They now produce, and especially bigger charities do this all the time, they produce impact reports, which show some of the things that I've just described in terms of the support that the project and the impact that the project has made in the local community or in a much wider area. It could be a national impact. But again, we're not looking at wider ranging social impact. We're just looking at it in terms of smaller organizations, I guess, because that's the biggest client group that we've got. So we're now going to go through 10 of the easiest and most common ways to monitor and measure the social impact of a social enterprise in England. Some of these I've mentioned already. How you deploy these depend on a number of factors because all projects are different, and you work with different client groups, so you may want to use different ways to monitor. Some may be common. The first one is probably a common one, but some of the other ones I'm going to mention might suit some organizations more than others, and maybe some not at all, and some will be perfect for some organizations. So the first way to monitor and measure social impact is to review key performance indicators. What is a key performance indicator? It measures specific metrics tied to the enterprise's goals, such as the number of beneficiaries served, because that's obviously one of the most important things. Because, for example, if you're operating a lottery project over a year or 2 years, one of the things that they will want to know is how many people you're going to support. And that's quite important. and you need to define that and measure it. How to use and identify key performance indicators relevant to the enterprise's mission, track them regularly, and analyze trends over time. So you should look to identify the most common performance indicators of your project. And once you do that, then you need to measure their delivery and effectiveness over time. Why it's effective? It provides quantifiable data that can easily be monitored and reported to stakeholders. Because I'm always working with organizations who say to me, we uh, we do a lot of good work, but it's really difficult for us to get funding. And one of the reasons why is they're often not able to prove that, because most funders will not just take your word for it. They'll want to see evidence to back that up. So using systems like this is a very good way to do that. And if you can do that, that's going to make it's not going to guarantee it, but it's going to make it more likely that you're going to be able to get funding, because you've got evidence to back up the services that you are delivering. So it's very important to have this quantifiable data. And that's one of the ways you can establish it, by using key performance indicators. The second is a system called Social Return on Investment, SROI. Some of you may have heard that term before. What it measures is the financial value of social benefits created relatively to the investment made in it. I've worked with social enterprises that have said, for every pound invested in us, we've generated £5 in value, and they found ways to prove that. I'll give you an example in a minute. How to use this? You can calculate SROI, social return on investment, by assigning monetary values to social outcomes and comparing them to the costs involved in achieving those outcomes. I was working with a health project, and they before people started on it, they interviewed them and asked them how many GP visits per month they were making. And then there is a cost. The government have got a formula for working out the value of a visit to a GP. So let's just say it's £15. And over time, a lot of the people on the project were going to the doctors or GP, say 4 or 3 times a month, and this was reduced to 2 or 1 times a month, because the health and other outcomes had improved. So they're able to demonstrate the value of the project by the reduction in cost to the NHS, which is a kind of simple way of doing it. There's probably other ways of doing it, but not every project can do this. But as I say, you assign a monetary value to the social outcomes, and comparing them to the costs involved in achieving those outcomes. I mean, another one is in the criminal justice system, for example, a more social one. The cost of keeping a prisoner, especially young prisoners, incarcerated is very, very high costs. So any ex-offender projects or young people at risk projects, investment in them is dwarfed by what is spent taking people through the criminal justice system. And again, while you're able to get official statistics as well, because you can't get it everywhere, that is where you should look and quote those sources in applications as well. but that's a very clear financial way of uh, describing social value generated by your enterprise. That'd be good for some of you. For others, it will be more difficult. The third one, again, this is one that most projects can use, surveys and questionnaires. What it measures is stakeholder satisfaction, changes in behavior, and perceived social value. Um, so, you know, you have to structure these asking certain questions that you want answered, how to use them, distribute surveys to beneficiaries, employees, and community members before, during, and after project implementation. So it's very important to get feedback from your project beneficiaries, because a lot of funders expect this. In fact, many of them, before initiating new projects, that these days they often want to know what community input there's been into your project. For example, the lottery will ask this, and how that feedback has shaped the project. So you need to look at ways to engage people with surveys, and distribute them to a range of people, obviously the beneficiaries, but also employees, community members, during and after project implementation. If you've got volunteers on a project, then their feedback is good. If you're part of a charity or you've got a board for your social enterprise, then maybe those people as well get their feedback about the services that you're providing or projects. Because over time you can use that in different ways. Obviously, it will help to get funding, but it will also, more importantly, help to develop and improve your services, because it's based on client or participant feedback, then especially if that feedback is good, you'll know you're going in the right direction. If it's not so good, you'll know of ways to of the issues and try and address those issues. So that's surveys and questionnaires. The next one is called impact mapping, and I'm going to show you. I'm actually going to show you a private sector version, because it was quite simple compared to some of the others I could find as an example. Impact mapping, what it measures is the pathway through which the enterprise's activities lead to social outcomes. How do you use it? You create an impact map that links activities, outputs, outcomes, and the overall impact. And you regularly update it based on the project's developments. Why is it effective? Because it provides a visual representation on how the enterprise work leads to social change. So here is one, because I've tried to make this as common as possible. This is actually a kind of a social project for mobile phone or connective technology. So what the goal is, to grow mobile advertising by 50% over the next 12 months. So that's the goal, because you've got 4 headings here. The actor is who the people are that are going to carry out. And on this one, it's super fans with mobile devices. So it's people who are committed to your project or services, got mobile devices. Live concert organizers, artists, agents, and promoters, because this was a creative industries project. And the impact is that people come back more frequently, stay longer on the app, and view more ads per connection, all of those can be tracked, of course. So there is your evidence and what the deliverables are, push updates on the app, special offers every month, and better layout when browsing events. That's some of the things that they've done to improve the impact. So that's a very simple version of an impact map, but there are others. I suggest you look online for others that might suit a project like yours. I just wanted to provide a very generic one because we've got quite a range of organizations on here this afternoon. So we'll move on to the next one. I must say I like visual material, so that's one that I would personally use on projects I'm involved in, if it's appropriate, because of course that's the key thing. It has to be appropriate. The next one, I advise a lot of organizations, particularly in well-being or where it's not so easy to demonstrate collective key performance indicators because of the nature of the participants or client group. So what case studies do, what they measure is details examples of how the enterprise has positively impacted individuals or communities. One of the things, incidentally, about case studies is that you need to get the permission of the person or persons concerned. So you'll need them to sign some kind of declaration or waiver, and you can't use their full name. You can use their first name, and indeed, if they're happy to be photographed, then that's fine. But you've got to ask them about that as well, because there could be potential issues with that. But how do you use? You select a few participants, beneficiaries, or communities and document their stories, focusing on the changes experienced due to your enterprise's activities. So if you're a wellbeing project, person comes along and they've had certain issues or problems, you give them support and they start to address or deal with those problems. And then you highlight the results. For example, they might have got back into, as a result of the support you've given them, they might go back into volunteering or further education or employment or some other outcome that you could develop. So you're looking at the individual or individuals or even a community as a whole and look at what your impact was on them and look at what the outcomes were for them. Case studies that I've ever worked on have usually been individual case studies because I think they are the most effective because these are stories eventually. Everybody's interested in people's background and stories, and it just shows the kind of human touch really, rather than a very slick analysis or set of performance indicators, because big companies are very good at doing that, and it'd be difficult to match. But this is where smaller projects have the advantage, because they have to work closer and in local areas and communities with people, and the impact can be just as significant, if not more significant, than some bigger organization or project. So that is another way you can demonstrate the benefits of your project using case studies. And I would have thought that would be one that most of you here today could utilize. Let's move on. Focus groups. What is a focus group? A focus group is a group of individuals that come together to review or focus on certain issues. What it measures is in-depth insights into stakeholder experiences and perception of impact. So the people involved You're looking to gain some insights into their experience of the project and the perceptions of the impact of the project. So what do they think it's achieved or indeed not achieved, or what needs to be improved, or what worked really well? How do you use it? You conduct interviews or focus groups with different stakeholders, including your beneficiaries or participants, employees, partners, volunteers, or any other stakeholders to gather qualitative data. So you could have a focus group made up of representatives of all those groups, or you could do them depending on your inclination and resources. You could do them with different types of stakeholders. So your participants, employees, volunteers, partners, you could do them separately and see what the feedback has. I mean, you need to script these. You do need to do some work. There's lots. I haven't got the time today to go into detail on what how a focus group should be conducted, but there's a lot of material out there online about that. It's something we might even do at some stage in the future. But why it's effective, it provides rich, detailed information that can uncover deeper impacts not captured by qualitative methods. So, for example, if you're on an employment project, you know, the KPIs will determine the number of people who've got jobs, but it can't necessarily detail the individual feedback of those individuals or some of the individuals that got a job and what the issues were and how they overcame them, or how they struggled with going back to work or whatever. A focus group can uncover and detail that information in a much more focused and developed way than other methods that I've mentioned. Although there are alternatives to this, we've just gone through one, which is case studies. That is equal. All of these are equally valid. It's a lot of these are down to the capacity of individual organisations. Some have more capacity and some have less. Right. So focus group. The next is community feedback mechanisms. So this is a range of techniques, really, and what it measures is continuous feedback from the community on the enterprise's activities and impacts. You know, these don't have to be complex. How to use these? You establish channels like suggestion boxes. I mean, that is an easy one. It's not difficult to do. If you're running events or training, you could take one there, or you go into other community meetings or presentations about your project, then you could use one there. But there are other methods. Online forums are now very, very important, and things like WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, and others. These can often be exit strategies for projects, or part of exit strategies, because a lot of funders, if you've been in for funding, they like to, you know, if they're funding you for a year or 2 years, they sometimes they ask, but many of them would like to know what will happen when the funding ends. Will the project continue? Will it end? Well, if you can have a legacy of the project, you know, like a WhatsApp group, or an online community or forum, whatever, then I think that will help you to get funding. It will certainly help with getting follow-on funding, because of course, you've got some mechanisms that are still there that you'll be able to consult with and provide further support if you get more funding, or continue to support that forum on or project on a volunteer basis. Why these are effective? It can ensure your enterprise remains responsive to community needs and can adopt its approach accordingly. So if you're getting feedback regularly, then and you're able to incorporate that feedback into the services you provide, that will help you develop your organization and improve the quality of the services that you provide, whatever they are. So let's move on. Outcome harvesting. This is an interesting one. What this measures, or what it is, it measures unintended and intended outcomes that emerge from your activities. So going back to the employment programs again, the outcomes could be people getting to work, but there may be other things that arise from that, like an improvement in people's self-esteem or well-being because they got back into employment, or some other things that may have not necessarily been expected. How do you use that? You regularly review the project's activities to identify and document both expected and unexpected outcomes. So you're reviewing what you're doing all the time. Some outcomes you'll expect, others you may not expect. Why is it effective? It captures a broad range of impacts, including those that might not be immediately obvious. One good example of that that I've witnessed this over the years is with childcare projects, for example. Obviously, childcare projects have a range of benefits because they enable parents or carers to go to work if necessary. But also there's been a lot of research done about this, is that they help to develop social networks, because if you're, say, a lone parent, that might be the only interaction you have with others that day, but you might also get other information from that network from other parents or carers. You might find information about employment or social activities in the area. It can become a social network in itself. Obviously, there are certain expected outcomes, like childcare that was delivered, etc., etc. But there are other outcomes there that are not necessarily intended, but are very, very positive outcomes if they work properly. So that's outcome harvesting. There's a child's drawing. Number 9, this is a more business focused one, and you do have to have some resources to do that. Quite a few bigger projects that I work with do this, so I'm not going to go into this too much because I could have spent the whole hour going through this. It's a system called a balanced scorecard. If you want to know more about this, then I suggest you do a search for it online, and it will give you a lot more information than the 3 bullet points here. What it measures is it's a kind of holistic view, or an overview of an enterprise's performance across financial, client, participant, or customer facing services, and internal process and learning perspectives. So it's a kind of a system that you attribute values to. You develop a scorecard with metrics in each category and track progress regularly. So it could be some measurement of the advice that's given to people, for example, and how that changes and improves over time. And you can do that financially as well, how the organization's finances are developing. You can use it in all sorts of different ways. Why it's effective? Because that's why it's called a balanced scorecard. It provides a balanced approach to measuring performance, ensuring that social impact is integrated with financial sustainability. And the project I mentioned right at the beginning, the one with social return on investment, there's all a focus on the financial aspects of that. If you're doing that, that's often done in tandem with the balanced scorecard. But, it does depend. Some projects may be equipped to do this, others may not. And it's generally one that is used by more established organizations. And the next one, final one, this is participatory evaluation. What it measures is impact as seen from the perspective of beneficiaries and other stakeholders. So it's the people who are, who the recipients, the participants in your project, and other stakeholders. So you develop an evaluation process which is designed and supported by your participants, beneficiaries, and other stakeholders. So you can ask them what they think is important about the project and what should be measured, etc., etc. And then I've worked on a number of projects where I've worked on some housing projects where volunteers collect data and do what is effectively market research, because that's a good skill to have and can help them gain employment. And they also analyze the results. So this can be effective because this comes from the community. It's not, from a funder perspective as well, it's not just them having to take your word about certain things and key performance indicators, etc., etc., because the evaluation has actually come from the community. So again, this can be done in different ways. It can be done via questionnaires, informal feedback, online feedback. And why is it effective? Because it empowers participants and beneficiaries and ensures the evaluation reflects their experiences and priorities. So they've got ownership of it, essentially. All of these measures that I've just mentioned can be used individually or in combination to provide a comprehensive picture of a social enterprise's impact. Whichever method you choose, it should align with your goals, resources, and the nature of your activities, which is a point I've been stressing all along. Whichever, you've got to be realistic about this, because I suspect most of you are not going to be implementing balanced scorecard straight away, but you might be able to do this one. You might be able to do case studies, and some of the other ones, maybe impact mapping as well. Who knows? You've got some choice here. So I think that's it. Yeah, that's something about participatory evaluation for a technically rigorous, socially inclusive, and culturally respectful participatory evaluation, because that's something I should mention as well. In all of these techniques, you should be very aware, if you're not already, to make these techniques socially inclusive and culturally respectful. A participatory evaluation is a good way of achieving that, but the others can achieve it too, but you must keep that in mind. The social inclusion and the cultural aspects of this are very, very important. Okay. So in summary, you can utilize the techniques described above, but pick the ones that are most appropriate and realistic in terms of application and delivery. Smaller organizations may not be in a position to implement all of these, but you could use the more attainable ones like KPI analysis or methodology that involves participants or volunteers. larger organizations or more established organizations should be more ambitious and utilize a range of monitoring and evaluation strategies. So there you go. Here's some resources. All of those I think you will find useful. So that's some more contact details, which you've got already. So I am going to stop the share here. And thank you all for going through that. I'm just going to take a picture of the screen so we know who's been online. There we go. That will ensure you get your copy of the presentation, because we're going to send it out to people who actually turn up online, not to those who just registered, because we get a high dropout. Okay, I will take any questions. I've covered a lot of ground there. I'm aware of that, but I hope you've got a useful overview, and I hope you find some use from those. I think we've had a couple of points made here. So our contact details, I'll put them in the chat, but the easiest way to contact us is to go onto our website. This is for Wendy, cntassociates.com. And thank you for your comment, Lorraine. Thank you. That was insightful presentation. But any questions from people? Don't be shy. Ellen, I can see you've got a lot on your mind. What would you like to ask?
No, it's just so much brilliant information here. It's really, really rich, a rich source of information. I do have one question. I work with people with dementia, and every day that I do my music sessions, I come away with an amazing story, which I could potentially use as a case study.
Yeah.
And what you were saying about asking permission to use somebody's name and to use their story. And what I have been doing, and I don't know if this is correct, is I have been using these case studies informally, just recording them, writing them down, but changing the name. Is that?
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, you can say this is the case study of, Jane, not her real name, but it's based on actual experience. Nobody's going to challenge that because of the nature of your client group, which kind of underlines the point of you're not going to do easily a participatory evaluation with somebody like that, are you? Because of the nature of their conditions. So case studies is a good way to do it, but you have to be sensitive to the needs of the individual and their families or carers as well. So that is a way to do it, but I would always seek permission from wherever you can, because if they have no relatives, that's going to be difficult. But maybe if they're in a home, maybe check that with the home managers or whoever, because I know we're running some local authority programs, and they gave us a very detailed waiver that we've got to get people to sign. But that's for photographs. Again, if you're not taking any photographs, it's not going to apply. But yeah, you could use the first name or an assumed name. But you can just say why we changed the name because of the nature of the condition that the person has with respect to the family, or whatever the reason is.
Thank you.
I think that is a very fair way of proceeding in that case. Have we got anybody else wants to ask any questions about this? Somebody's asked about monitoring software. I think this kind of changes a lot. I've given some links. I'm reluctant to recommend particular software on this because it really depends without doing an evaluation of your organization, which we would have to charge for, that it's not um, something that's easy because it depends on the nature of your organization and your requirements and your budget, of course,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can buy expensive software, but then you've got to learn to use it and implement it as
Yeah.
well. So if you can't afford the software, then use, review the methods that I've given you today
Mhm.
and like Eleanor's done, pick the one that is most relevant to your group. Because Stella, you work with young people. I mean, again, that's a group where, you know, going into schools and taking pictures is very difficult, unless you're doing it at the back of people's heads and you can't see their faces. Um, which is always a possibility because some of the projects I work with older people are the same as well. So you've got to kind of use other methods. That's why, for example, the financial value one would be good for some of you in terms of measuring the social return on investment. But again, that's you've got to be able to get some of the base data for that, about costs. And that's not always easy to get. So, there are other things. Case studies, you could do some impact mapping, if as long as you've got some sort of data to back that up. That's quite an easy thing to do. You've just really got to review those 10 methods and pick, even if it's only one, at least you're doing something, you
Yeah.
know. But I think the two that all of you can use from the ones that I've seen on here, you can do case studies and you can do feedback, uh, related ones that I've detailed there, because you can get feedback from other stakeholders as well, about the effectiveness where it's possible. Because if you're working with schools like you do, Stella, you get feedback from the school. That's very powerful, as well as from the young people. So you've got feedback from a range of stakeholders. That kind of evidence will be uh, uh, accepted. I mean, if you've got any content or material that people have viewed as well, you might have videos or whatever that have been viewed by participants. That's another, angle to get feedback on. I've not included every kind of evaluation and social impact monitoring strategy that there is there. There are others, but those are the main ones. But you can adapt these as long as you've got a bed of evidence, I would say. And it really starts with the key performance indicators. How many people you work with, what are the aims of your project? Have you achieved it? But like I said earlier, for some of you, that's uh, easier than others. If you're an employment project, you can track how many people have been through, how many people got jobs, what the impact on their lives was. That's relatively easy. If you're doing what Eleanor does, which is working with people with dementia, that's much more difficult. You can do the numbers of people you work with, but sometimes, working with just one or two people and having some, great outcomes or impact is significant. So it's really, you need to think this out before you do it, and be realistic. Like I said, for most of you, the balanced scorecard is not the way forward, but I thought I would show it you because at least you know what it is now and you've got some information. So if somebody says, why can't you do this? You can say,
Yeah.
well, there are these issues that prevent us from doing it, so we'll do this other one. Any more questions from people? Um, I
So,
I've
sorry, you
included,
mentioned,
yeah,
Gary, you
yeah,
mentioned
sure.
videos. Were you referring to video feedbacks or videos that you show during a presentation, or how can that be
Uh,
used
yeah,
to
yeah,
measure
yeah. I mean,
impact?
that's more, content you might have about your services. If you showed young people, say, a video about communication skills, for example, that
Yes,
you've
yes.
developed yourself, and that went down well. Well, that's, you know, that's verifiable evidence, and you've got the video as well. You know,
Okay.
try and avoid situations where, you know, particularly when you're applying for funding, where the funder has to take your word for it, because they
Okay.
may or may not do that. But what they will do is, if somebody provides evidence to back it up, then they're much more likely to take that on board, you know, because it's verified from it's verified independently. You know, if you've got a participant evaluation or case studies, then that's a way of verifying the impact of your project, you know, without just taking your word for it.
But what if it's a brand new project that you haven't actually had time to gather any
yeah,
evidence?
then you're going to have to fall back on any case studies as a result of it. You're going to have to treat it as a pilot project. You could run a small pilot project first,
Yes.
you know, and then that might help you anyway, because if you evaluate it properly, you'll find out what works and what needs to be improved, and maybe some things that need to be amended or dropped, you know.
Okay.
Then, you know, if you're going for funding for that, you can then say, you know, this project is based on a pilot project. So we've tried to test it out before, and, you know, of whatever numbers, etc., etc.
Okay.
There's a number of ways that you can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, any more questions from people? Because the hour is almost finished. I'd like to join you. Thank you for joining us today. You will get a copy of the presentation. It will be on our YouTube channel in about 2 weeks' time. So you've got some information. There's some links in there. I would follow those links up. See if there's any, you know, there's a link to a video on that about social impact, so that could be useful to some of you, and I hope you've got some value out of this today.
Would
I
it
was
be
enjoying
possible, sorry, to post the
yeah.
link in the chat so that we can have it immediately, those links, rather than waiting until we receive the
You're going to get it this afternoon, Stella.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You're going to get the presentation with all the links this afternoon.
Okay. It's just that I
It
heard 2 weeks or something.
No, that's for the video to go
Oh, I
online.
see. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
because what we do is we edit this a bit, you
Yes,
know,
of course.
we don't let you have the warm up at the beginning where
That's
we're
fine.
testing
I
the
understand.
share
Okay.
screen
Right.
share. We just edit it a little bit,
Okay.
and then we put it online. But you'll get the presentation. All of you who've attended this afternoon will get the presentation very shortly. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. There's more coming down the line in December. There's one on how to write a funding application, which is always our most popular one. So watch out for that one. And there's some others that are taking place soon. I'm also, for those of you who are in Greenwich, or we may put this out, but I'm doing in November the 13th, I'm doing a presentation on funding for wellbeing projects, and I'm going to have that's 2 hours. So I'm going to have you don't worry, you won't have to listen to me for 2 hours. I'm going to have some guests on it with me as well to break it up, because I think an hour of talking is enough for anybody really. So certainly online anyway. So thank you all for joining us today. I much appreciate your participation, and we'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.